Hello, folks. I am Paul Woodadge, and this is the first show I am live streaming to our two channels. Yes, you heard me correct. Our two channels. World War II TV, I have been running and hosting for 3 years, but in a few days' time, World War One TV begins, and we're going to do an introductory show on Saturday, the 27th, where I will introduce you to my co-host. It's not going to be me. I'll be involved in some of the earlier shows, and I'll be behind the scenes as a creative director, so to speak, but there'll be a fantastic host who you have seen that person already on World War II TV, but I'm not going to tell you who it is, although you may already know. Anyway, today we're talking about book reviews. Now, I am not a World War One buff. I am not a First World War expert at all, but of course I have a few books, and I'm going to take you through my favorite books just for a few minutes. And we'll see whether you think you agree or whether you have other books you're going to suggest. But here we go with my favorite First World War books. Well, we're starting, of course, with Peter Hart. Peter Hart has been a guest on World War II TV. He'll be on next week talking about the South Notts Hussars, an artillery unit in the North African desert at the Battle of Knightsbridge. But he was, for many years, the oral history archivist and main guy at the Imperial War Museum. So Voices from the Front is an oral history of the Great War, but written down. So he conducted many of these interviews himself, and he oversaw many others. And this is probably the world's greatest archive of testimonies of those who served well through World War One. And so Peter Hart has condensed a selection of these books into this book, and it's about the guys, who was there by the guys who were there. So it's about combat as seen through the guys of the people who fought through it. So it's just a really indispensable, I think, book to just hear the voices or read the voices of those who fought in that incredible conflict, that costly conflict that led, of course, 20 years later to World War II. So there you are. This is Voices from the Front, my first recommendation, and you can't go wrong with Peter Hart's writing. And as I say, he's a great historian, and I would like to say a friend now as well. So that's it, Voices from the Front, book number one. Book number two, another World War II TV guest who we will be inviting to guest on World War One TV is Robin Pryor. Now, Robin is over in Australia. He writes about the two world wars. One of the things we really want to bring to you on World War One TV, and good afternoon or morning, Brad from On This Day, Canadian Military History, is watching, is to understand that World War II is in some ways a continuation of First World War, in that you have to understand the First World War to understand the Second. Some of the commanders were there. Some of the same battlefields are fought over in both wars. The themes of how to use air power, how to use machine guns, etc., are applicable to both wars. So we're going to try and bring the two wars together, bring World War II people to World War One, and bring World War One people to World War II. So my second book is Conquer We Must by Robin Pryor, a military history of Britain 1914 to 1945. So it takes you through the two world wars and, of course, that critical interwar period when the British Army, the British military, are trying to learn the lessons. Some of the lessons they learned proved not to be applicable to the Second World War. Some of the lessons they learned did prove to be useful, but Robin Pryor is a fantastic historian. He's also just a really nice bloke. And if you're going to get one book by Robin Pryor, I thoroughly recommend Conquer We Must. So it takes you through all sorts of things. He came on fairly recently on World War II TV and talked about the combined bomber offensive. So there we are, Robin Pryor, book number two. Book number three is probably my oldest book on the First World War, and it was my entry part to the American involvement. I don't know whether it ever had a dust jacket. It is called The Doughboys by Lawrence Stallings, and it is about the AIF in the First World War, so the American forces. And it's old and dog-eared, much like the person who's holding it up in front of me. What I like about it, yes, I am old and dog-eared, is the maps. It's got really good quality maps there that's the 38th Infantry Regiment on the Marne. And who doesn't like a book with maps? And some of them fold out, and it's got lots of black and white photos. So, okay, the US Army was only involved in the latter part of First World War, but again, to understand how it arrived, what impact it had, and also there were some key commanders who were there who then resurfaced in World War II. You know the names of people we're talking about there. So that was my introduction to the American involvement in the First World War. That's my third book. Number four is a guy who's not been on the channel because he's only written about First World War. I will try and make contact with him. He toured with me here in Normandy a number of years ago, and he wrote a book called Games the Last about one of the Australian units at Gallipoli. And Gallipoli, of course, is the 11th Australian Infantry Battalion. Gallipoli looms large in all of our histories. The anniversaries are always acknowledged. It is a pilgrimage place for Australians and Brits. Peter Hart, who I just mentioned, is out at Gallipoli right now. A couple of other people I know are out there right now. It is always a place that people go to understand the battlefield. And this is a book about one battalion. So to people, when they study Gallipoli, rather like Normandy, they talk about the generals and the decisions and whether this should have been done or whether that shouldn't be done. And there is a bit of that in this book. I should give you the author's name. It's James Hurst is the author of this book, but it's really about the men who made up this battalion. So it kind of ignores some of that overview stuff that has been discussed and just talks about one unit and what they went through. And it's good. Yes, we have a World War I channel coming up, Stephen. I will put the link to it in this show there. You can find it there. We're launching it on May the 27th. So, So Rob Lyman, I think, is out in Gallipoli right now. So that's my fourth book, Game to Last. Next book. Paul Kendall is someone I've known for a number of years, and he wrote the book Somme 1916, which is a guide to the first day of the battle. Of course, any start of to understand World War I has to begin with if you're British, with the Somme for Verdun for the French, Somme for the British. Of course, there's Passchendaele, there's everybody else as well, but the Somme is probably the battle that looms large in our collective memory. Again, there's lots of discussions about the decisions made and the overall strategy, but this is a book about who was where, what they did, and how the day panned out for them. It's a big book. And Paul Kendall was kind enough to send me copies of his maps he used so that when I could visit the Somme, I could have his maps. Although these days you can get all your trench maps online and put them on apps on your phones, things like that. But this was probably, when I read it the first time, maybe 6-7 years ago, my first rereading about the First World War in probably 20 years or so. And it never ignited a complete interest in World War I. I'm a World War II guy, and that's it. But it did come very close to kind of push me down that route of trying to learn about the Great War. The thing is, I haven't got the time, but it's a really, really good book. And there it is. And there are good books in German, and you can have lots of recommendations. Because I say my First World War library is half a shelf, a pitiful half a shelf. I've got as many books on American Indian Wars. I've got as many books on Vietnam and Korea as I have on the First World War. But I'm hoping to learn, and that is what we will be doing together on World War I TV, which, as I say, shameless plug, will be starting soon. And people that you are familiar with from World War II TV will be on World War I TV. So people like Peter Caddick Adams and Robert Lyman and Prip Buttar and many others will be hopefully joining us there. So yeah, that's the next book. The final one, The Journeys End, was the famous play by R.C. Sheriff. It has been made as several movies. It was also made as a movie in the air called Aces High in 1976. The recent version of Journeys End from about 4 years ago. Stephen Graham was in the cast. It is a perennial favorite on stage in Britain. Journeys End is probably the most famous play stroke film about that conflict. But the author, R.C. Sheriff, served in a unit, and the unit he served in was the 9th East Surreys. And so this book, The Journeys End Battalion by Michael Lucas, is about the real war experience of the 9th East Surreys that R.C. Sheriff was part of. So if you want to understand, if you're familiar with Journeys End, the experiences that shaped R.C. Sheriff's understanding of that war that led him to write The Journey's End, this is a good place to start. The Journeys End Battalion. It takes you through their war on the Western Front. So yes, Lucy Betteridge Dyson will be on the channel. I'm not going to say any more about that, but yes, she will be part of World War I TV. In what way, you will have to find out. And there are lots of books about the German side of things. One thing I want to say about World War I TV, and we will do a lot of this in our launch show, me and the co-host, is it won't just be a British view of the war. It will be a world view of the war. We will do the same thing we do on World War II TV. We'll try and bring guests in from places like Turkey and the USA and Germany and France, particularly, and Belgium and Italy, and maybe even places further afield, that South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, of course, because to understand that conflict, you have to understand it from different points of view. So that is my review of some First World War books. But as for more about World War One TV, you will have to wait for our launch on May the 27th. So it's our usual time, 7 p.m. British Summer Time on Saturday 27th. Me and the co-host, the new co-host, will be presenting a live show. We'll be explaining what we've got, what our plans are, and we'll be inviting questions from you. But let's not to just get you excited. The whole idea will be, I said it a minute ago, is to bring the two wars together in our understanding. I've had some fantastic chats over the last few days with people like Brad from OTD, Canadian Military History, for Dan Hill, others like that. And there's definitely a separation of people's understanding. There are World War One enthusiasts, World War Two enthusiasts. There are some who do both, but they're very much a sort of stay in your lane approach to this history. But what I want to do, what me and the co-hosts want to do, is bring the two wars together and the interwar period and look at it as a continuing study. And we will be making the point that to understand World War II, you have to understand the one that came before and that crucial period before. So for the future, we'll be doing things like a theme week on World War One TV will be perhaps about North Africa and the First World War. Then following up the following week, there'll be me on World War II talking about North Africa in World War II, or we'll do a show about Montgomery in the First World War, followed by on the World War One TV channel, followed by a show about Montgomery in the Second World War on World War II TV, that kind of thing. So there we are. THT Lawrence, of course, is a fantastic book. Samuel Thompson recommended there. But that's it. Quick appraisal of my favorite World War One books. Please add your ones in the title, in the description below, in the comments below. And if you're not yet a member of the World War II TV or World War One TV channels, I will put the link in there so you can find the channel. There's nothing, well, there will be something there now. There'll be this, and there's the live listing for the launch show. But we're trying to get the ball rolling because we won't be doing proper content until we have reached 1,000 subscribers, because that is the point in which we can be monetized and et cetera, et cetera. It makes it easier for us. So there will be no proper content until we've reached that magical figure of 1,000 subscribers. We're already at 130 or something. So yeah, launch show is the 27th, and the first batch of shows will come in the second half of June. Myself and the host are going up to the Eep area where we're meeting up with JD from History Underground to do some promotional work up there and things like that. But it is really exciting. And I was talking on World War II TV in the comments just a couple of weeks ago, and someone said, well, have you ever got any plans to do World War One TV? And I say, no, not on your nanny, no way at all. I don't know anything about it. And then one night I kind of thought, you know what, I should do it. But it's not going to be me. It's going to be the host that I will introduce to you on May 27th. There we are. That's it. Have a good rest of the day. Enjoy yourselves. And if you haven't discovered more of the fantastic history content on YouTube, there's lots of it out there. Brad on This Day in Canadian Military History being one such brilliant provider who if you haven't found his channel, go out there and find it. So there we are. Thank you very much. I will see you all next time. This is Paul Woodadge for World War II and World War One TV saying enjoy the rest of your day. Cheers, everybody. Bye.